All right, today we're diving into a story of high-stakes survival and intellectual revolution, straight out of the ancient world. It's all about a man who had to figure out how to thrive in a city that was, well, openly hostile to people like him, all while trying to protect a priceless legacy. This is the story of Ammonius, the survivor philosopher of Alexandria.
So let's just get right to the heart of it. Picture this. You are a public intellectual, a teacher of pagan philosophy, but you're in a city that is rapidly becoming a fortress for a rival faith. A place where disagreements don't just stay in the lecture hall. No, they spill out onto the streets and they get deadly. So how do you not just stay alive, but make sure your life's work actually outlives you?
You know, the world Ammonius lived in wasn't just theoretically dangerous, it was actively, terrifyingly violent. I mean, look at this timeline. In 415 CE, the brilliant philosopher Hypatia was literally dragged from her chariot and murdered by a mob. A few decades later, a pagan sanctuary gets ransacked, and by 489, the government itself launches a full-blown persecution of pagan professors. This was the pressure cooker Ammonius was living in every single day.
Okay, so let's properly meet our guy, Ammonius, son of Hermaeus. He was the head of a really prestigious school in Alexandria. But here's the thing, his school was a major center for what they called Hellenic, or pagan learning, and it was smack dab in the middle of a city that was a global powerhouse of Christianity. He was, for all intents and purposes, running a fortress of classical thought deep inside enemy territory.
And this, right here, is the central mystery of his survival. Because in 489, at the absolute height of the purges, while his colleagues were being arrested, or worse, Ammonius survived. He stayed. How? He made some kind of deal with the Christian bishop. But the exact terms of that deal, they've been lost to history, and it sparked a debate that is still going on today.
So what was this deal? The interpretations could not be more black and white. On one side you have his accusers, who claimed he was a greedy traitor, that he totally sold out his beliefs, maybe even his friends, all for his own safety and profit. But on the other side, there's this more modern view that says, hold on, maybe he was a brilliant pragmatist. Maybe he made a painful, necessary compromise to save something much bigger than himself, the entire tradition of philosophy.
And the most scathing accusation comes from another philosopher of the time, a guy named Damascius. I mean, you can just feel the venom in this quote, right? He paints Ammonius as completely unprincipled. But it's really important to remember, Damascius was a rival, and his history consistently frames Ammonius in the absolute worst light possible. So are we reading an accurate report here, or is it basically a character assassination?
And that really brings us to the crucial question. Let's just assume for a second that this was a strategic choice. What was so important that he was trying to protect? What intellectual treasure was so valuable that it was worth risking his entire reputation, worth making a deal with the very people who wanted to shut him down? Well, it turns out he was working on something absolutely revolutionary.
Ammonius's entire life's work was about harmonizing Plato and Aristotle. Now, for centuries, these two giants were seen as total opposites. You were either Team Plato or Team Aristotle. Even Ammonius's own teachers pushed this idea of disagreement. But Ammonius came along and said, no, you're all looking at it wrong. If you dig deep enough, you'll see they are in profound agreement. He wasn't a loyalist, he was a bridge builder, trying to find a single, unified truth.
And he had a crystal clear method to do it. Step 1, you have to know all of Aristotle, inside and out. Step 2, you have to know all of Plato, no shortcuts. Step 3, you demonstrate how they fundamentally agree. And step 4, and this is the absolute key, you must value truth more than your loyalty to any one thinker. This was his rulebook for being a true philosopher.
So his huge project led to some incredibly influential ideas. Let's just zoom in on two of his biggest contributions, ideas that went on to shape debates for over 1,000 years. His new take on God and his solution to the thorny problem of free will.
Okay, let's break this down. Traditionally, Aristotle's God was seen as a final cause, sort of like a perfect ideal that the world is drawn towards, but not an active creator. Ammonius argued that no, God was also an efficient cause, the actual primary source of the world's existence, the doer of creation.
And this is a brilliant example of his harmonizing project. It suddenly made Aristotle's God sound a whole lot more like Plato's creator God, and, conveniently, a whole lot more like the God of the Christian.
Next up, Ammonius took on one of philosophy's biggest headaches, the sea battle problem. If the statement, "there will be a sea battle tomorrow," is true today, does that mean the future is totally fixed? His solution was so clever. He said we have to distinguish between definite and indefinite truth. A statement about the past, like "the ship sailed yesterday," is definitely true or false. It's locked in. But a statement about something that might happen tomorrow? That's only indefinitely true or false. The truth isn't settled yet, and that leaves the door open for chance and for free will.
So we come to the critical question. Did his controversial gamble actually pay off? Did surviving those purges allow his ideas to take root and grow? Well, the answer is a resounding, history-changing yes. His decision, whatever it was, created a ripple effect that spread across the entire known world. And what a legacy it was. He founded this massively influential school in Alexandria. His students, both pagans and Christians, became the next generation of genius thinkers. But it didn't stop there. His work got translated into Syriac and Arabic, shaping philosophy in the Islamic world for centuries. And then those works were translated into Latin, becoming required reading for European theologians like Thomas Aquinas, who pretty much built his entire Christian philosophy on the back of Ammonius's harmonized Aristotle.
This chart really gives you a sense of that incredible reach. From his one classroom in Alexandria, his ideas traveled out through his students and translators, landing in the biggest intellectual centers of the Islamic world, and from there, jumping right into the new universities of medieval Europe. He didn't just save himself. He made sure a richer, more unified version of Greek philosophy became a cornerstone of both Western and Middle Eastern thought.
So we end up right back where we started, with Ammonius and his mysterious deal. Was he a greedy sellout, like his rivals claimed? Or was he a pragmatist who understood that sometimes, for a great idea to live on, its protector has to make a choice that looks, well, messy? His story leaves us with this timeless, really uncomfortable question, one that goes way beyond ancient Alexandria. When is compromise a betrayal? And when is it the key to survival? And that, right there, is something worth thinking about.